in the rationale for mediation, if that would help.
Get to the other Lord Mayor too.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be standing for the Sheriff and Deputy Lord
Good evening, Council. Please be seated. Microphone's working all right, yes. I would like to welcome everyone here this evening to this meeting of Newcastle City Council, and welcome also to anyone watching the council meeting online. Before we move to the formal business of the meeting, I just want to say a few words about Councillor Dunn, the Lord Mayor. And I would just like to say, a few days ago we were told of the sudden and tragic news about the death of her husband John, and who was also the Lord Mayor's consort, as we're aware. And Veronica and John had had a long and loving relationship, I understand, for over 50 years. I didn't actually know them, but I understand that. So to lose a family member is always a very, very sad occasion. But to lose one's lifelong companion in this way, I know would be particularly heartbreaking. And I understand what Veronica is probably going through at the moment. I know, therefore, that I speak on behalf of everyone in extending our heartfelt sympathy to Veronica and her family at this very, very difficult time. I know also that they will have appreciated the many messages of support and sympathy that have been sent to them from across the council, and I thank council members for those expressions of support and sympathy. So therefore, can I ask council to stand for a minute's silence to show our support and respect for Veronica and her family. Thank you very much, colleagues. That's greatly appreciated. Thank you. We now, of course, move on to the formal business of the meeting this evening. So can I ask, first of all, do we have any apologies for absence?
Sheriff, we have apologies from Councillors Allen, Brown, Cott, Dunn, Ellis, Hall, Hindmarsh, Ion, Joanne, Laverick, Lowson, Prestwell, Stevenson, Stonkel Walker, D. Wood, M. Wood, Wright, K. Robinson, Morrissey, and Councillor Ashby.
My goodness. That's quite a lengthy list. Are there any other apologies that haven't been mentioned there that people wanted to bring to our attention? No, thanks very much indeed for that. Minutes of the previous meeting, it was held on the 4th of October. It was a special meeting for some particular reason, and it was the ordinary council meeting as well. Do we agree those minutes has been a correct record? Agree? I now have a number of official announcements that I'd like to make. The first one is related to the order of items on the agenda for tonight, and I've received a request from Councillor Mitchell to bring forward her motion on pancreatic cancer, which is at item 14 on the agenda, to be heard as the first motion tonight ahead of item 12. Is this agreed by Council? Thank you very much indeed. The second item I have relates to the Remembrance Day Parade. The new Bishop of Newcastle, who I had the privilege of meeting on my first official engagement about a couple of weeks ago, is conducting the Remembrance Sunday service at the War Memorial in Eldon Square on the 12th of November. Members will have received invitations to this service, and we hope to see as many of you there as possible representing your communities. So I look forward to seeing people on the day. And I think this is the first official mention of Christmas that I can recollect, is that the newly elected Mayor of Bergen will be visiting the city and will switch on Christmas tree lights with the Lord Mayor on our beautiful Christmas tree in the grounds of St Thomas's Church. A short event will be held at the tree on the 30th of November, followed by light refreshments. And it would be wonderful to see if members and their families could support the event and our city's historic relationship with Bergen. Invitations will be sent out to all members, former Lord Mayors and Aldermen of the city. So that will be in due course. Correspondence. Does Council agree to receive the items of correspondence which we've received from the Home Office? Agreed? Sorry? Oh, right. I'm told that there is further correspondence from the Department of Health and Social Care. So we agree to accept that correspondence. Yes, agreed. Over to petitions. I understand we have one petition this evening, and I hope I've got the pronunciation right. Is it Anne Casson? Casson? Right, if you'd like to come to the microphone at the lectern there and present your petition, and I will be calling on Councillor Marion Williams to respond to it.
Right. Thank you. The 553 bus is a vital service for the residents of Newcastle and North Tyneside. It used to operate from Wallsend to the Freeman Hospital and return once an hour on weekdays. It gets patients speedily to cancer appointments without incurring extra costs on several buses and is very time effective. It provides a service for staff at the hospital to get to work who have various shift patterns. It's so necessary for visitors to the hospital who have no private transport to be able to attend and visit loved ones. It enables the disabled and able-bodied residents of Heaton, Wallsend and Walkerville to shop more economically at stores like Lidl and Aldi and help local shops in Wallsend get trade in these harsh financial times. Poorer communities are being victimised, whereas the current operating route of the 553 operates from the Freeman Hospital to Regent Centre. It's already serviced by other buses. We urge Newcastle City Council to have this service reinstated. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Yes, thank you for your petition. The provision of the 553 service is for Nexus to respond to, and we will make sure that they are aware of the petition. Our officers meet regularly with Nexus and will ensure that this is raised with them.
Okay. Does Council agree to accept this petition? Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Councillor Williams. We now move on to public questions and addresses. And I understand I have 2 public addresses to Council which have been received. Please note that 15 minutes is available for this item, so we have got a lengthy agenda tonight, so I'd like us to try and keep to time limits where we can. So I now call first of all on Nick Hartley. Yes? Mr Hartley, if you'd like to address council.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I'm here today as a resident of Byker. I'm here to ask the council to learn the lessons from the Byker incinerator and ash scandal from 20 years ago. We must not have history repeating itself in our region with the building of a mega incinerator, the Tees Valley Energy Recovery Facility, with the capacity to burn 450,000 tonnes of our region's waste per year. On the surface, this is part of our zero waste strategy. In the detail, it is devastating and will not achieve what we are told. The Stop Incineration North East campaign sets out clearly the reasons why incineration slows down carbon emission reduction and recycling rates, will result in the people of Newcastle creating health problems for people in areas of Middlesbrough that feature in the poorest 1%, and will lock Newcastle taxpayers into a costly contract with a Teesside Freeport company at a time when councils are declaring bankruptcy in the face of government-led austerity. Council, you have the opportunity to show leadership. For this mass incinerator to go ahead, there would need to be agreement from all 7 councils involved. It is in your hands to pause and review, to look at the evidence and to explore alternatives. The initial plan for the incinerator was to include carbon capture and storage, using another of Lord Houchen's projects, Net Zero Teesside. Houchen is confident that it can collect 10 million tonnes of CO2, pressurise it, pipeline it 145 kilometres to an offshore platform, sink it a kilometre beneath the seabed and dissipate it through an aquifer. Now, there's a lot of energy and money required for this still largely unproven technology. Can we rely on a pipe dream? Who here believes that this carbon capture will be ready for the time the incinerator is online in 2026? There'll be no national grid join-up until 2031, which renders the whole project unviable for 5 years of our contract. Remember 2019, when this council declared a climate emergency? Fantastic. How is this project compatible without carbon capture? According to evidence collated by UK Without Incineration Network, for every tonne of waste burned, typically around 1 tonne of CO2 is released. Around half of this is fossil CO2. And this means that incineration has a higher carbon intensity than the conventional use of fossil fuels. Increasing capacity of incineration is correlated with reduced recycling rates. We will not meet our recycling targets if we lock into a 30-year-odd contract with Teesside. A heavy fine awaits for any early exit from the contract. And what about health? Condemning the people of Middlesbrough, in Grangetown and South Bank to the long-term health problems associated with the ultrafine particles from the burning of our waste. Let's remember the lessons of Byker. A report produced last month for your Climate Change Committee warns that the Council's waste strategy is treading water. And in a critical section on the incinerator, it states there are cleaner, greener ways to reduce, reuse and recycle materials that make a fairer society for everyone. I agree. This was a commendable cross-party report written by 2 Liberal Democrat councillors and a Labour councillor. A Labour councillor who has recently been appointed as our new cabinet member for a connected clean city. Welcome. It is a comprehensive report and I hope the cabinet member stands by it. I call on the councillor to meet with Stop Incineration North East and have a proper debate in the light of up-to-date evidence before we sleepwalk the next 2 generations into the danger zone for the environment, our finances and our health. I respect this chamber in your statements on cleaning up our air, decarbonising our economy and putting social justice at the heart of your work on climate change. What you do now is a chance to turn your values into committed action. Will you pause and review your involvement with this project?
Thank you, Mr. Hartley. That was almost perfectly timed. Well done. And I'll now go over to Councillor Williams. 3 minutes to respond. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. In October 2019, Cabinet agreed a strategic approach to management of the Council's residual waste. And in July 2020, we entered into we entered into a partnership agreement to procure a waste treatment solution. The Tees Valley Energy Recovery Facility is a critical piece of infrastructure that will provide more than 1.5 million people with a local, secure, reliable and affordable treatment solution for residual waste. This will help the councils move towards their shared goal of sending zero waste to landfill. Energy recovery is now the predominant infrastructure solution used to deal with this waste and is a necessary counterpart to other efforts to reduce, reuse and recycle as much as we can in accordance with the waste hierarchy. Landfill is considered the least desirable solution for the treatment of waste. The majority of the top 10 performing councils in England for recycling use energy recovery for the treatment of their residual waste. The TVERF has been designed with capacity to treat 450,000 tonnes of residual waste per year and will generate sufficient energy to power the equivalent of around 60,000 homes. The treatment of a tonne of residual waste through energy recovery saves 200 kilograms of equivalent CO2 emissions on average compared with landfill. The primary role of the TVERF is to facilitate the safe and sanitary treatment of residual waste. It will be a contractual condition for the chosen operator to manage and reduce carbon emissions. The facility will be combined heat and power enabled, potentially allowing the export of heat to nearby users. The TVERF is situated within the East Coast cluster and close to a viable carbon storage pipeline connection should funding solutions become available. Modern energy recovery facilities like the TVERF are regulated and closely monitored by the Environment Agency and the UK Health Security Agency. Byker was an unfortunate and isolated industrial accident which occurred more than 20 years ago and which is found to be an operational issue resulting from human errors. In March 2022, the project partners were informed by National Grid that their network reinforcement works were unlikely to be complete until 2031. National Grid is working to reduce connection timescales, and we expect to hear from them in the next 6 months. The TVERF remains an essential infrastructure project for the council and the residents and businesses it serves. There are no plans to pause or review the council's involvement in this project.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Back to you, Mr. Hartley. 1 minute to reply.
Thank you, Councillor Williams, for that careful response. I appreciate the endeavour to reduce waste to landfill, but there is strong evidence that increasing the incineration capacity slows down any reductions in residual waste, and that makes it more difficult for us to reach our targets. If we're to reach the government's recycling rate target of 65% by 2035, Council has set it at 2030, and with a rollout of food waste collections on the horizon, it's really not viable to go down the route of incineration. UK Wind state that the North East has 12.5 million tonnes of incineration capacity, but less than 4 million tonnes of feedstock. This project only works if we ramp up our production of waste. We can't let that happen. In Councillor Williams' report for the Climate Change Committee, she advocates a zero waste strategy. Great. I hope the Council can pursue that. It's time to press pause. Please meet with Stop Incineration North East and see if we can really get round the table and understand this situation better. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hartley, thank you very much indeed. Perfectly timed again. Thank you. I now call on Mr. Brian Moore for the second question. I think Mr. Moore was with us at the last council meeting as well. Actually was quite fulsome in his praise of me, so can I say that I always found you to be a noble opponent anyway, politically.
Well deserved.
Yes, over to you then, Councillor Brian, Mr. Moore.
Thank you for that Freudian slip.
Over to you, a Freudian. Over to you. You have 5 minutes for your question to Council.
Councillor Williams, for decades, Newcastle City Council has made many pious claims about safeguarding the most vulnerable in the city, especially wheelchair users. Worryingly, it has come to my attention that the council is no longer working to the guidelines sent by the government providing safe footpaths for wheelchairs, users or others suffering disabilities while trying to use pavements in Newcastle. The Disability Discrimination Act places a requirement on the local authorities to ensure decent access. This includes public footpaths. Newcastle City Council is simply failing to comply with the Disability Act and conform to government best practice for roadways. Let me explain. There are minimum dimensions set by the Disability Act for footpaths. I quote, "A person who uses 2 sticks or crutches or walks or a walking frame needs a minimum of 900 millimetres. A blind person using a long cane with an assistance dog requires 1,100 millimetres. A visually impaired person who has been guided needs a width of 1,200. A wheelchair user and an ambulant person side by side need 1,500 millimetres width. In simple man's terms, that's 2 paving stones lengthwise, which gives you 1,800. The minimum for a wheelchair user, as stated, is 1,500. Remember, this is a minimum. The government guidelines state the preference should be 2 metres. I hope a reasonable councillor would expect the council to provide a footway with a minimum of 1,500 millimetres to comply with legislation. This is Newcastle City Council stated a policy effectively taken from their website. Where possible, we try to install a 900 millimetre wide paving stone along the back of a dropped curb to provide a continuous strip. Council policy for a wheelchair user is a maximum of 900 millimetres, not the minimum 1,500 as stated in the Act. Remember, as members, this is your policy. For the most vulnerable footpath users in the city, as members, you are agreeing to a policy for pavements that make them effectively inaccessible to the blind, the disabled and wheelchair users. The council is also given permission for drop curbs, which I'm not going to go into, if we can just note that. But what are the guidelines for the ramps associated with these new drop curbs that are half the pavement width of 1,800 millimetres has to comply with the Disability Discrimination Act? I quote, "Generally, pedestrian environment should be level, which means, this is from the government, there should be no gradient in excess of 1 in 60. Effects should be made to ensure the route is safe, since even small dips or gaps or paving stones might present a hazard, such as to persons who use a wheelchair, stick or crutch. If a level route is not feasible, then the gradient should not exceed, remember this, 1 in 20. A steeper slope is generally defined as a ramp." What is the council's policy? Well, the council has changed from a standard curb face, this is from the council website, at a drop crossing, we reduce the curb height from 100 millimetres to 25 millimetres, normally at vehicle crossing. We aim to create a longitudinal and transversal gradient of 8%. That is 1 in 12. Government policy is for the steepest is 1 in 20. You, as the council, are agreeing to a policy that makes it inaccessible to wheelchair users.
30 seconds, Mr. Moore.
The question is simple. Thank you for the prompt there. It's simple. Will Newcastle City Council comply with the Disability Discrimination Act and the associated guidelines and ensure that footways across the city are at least 1,500 millimetres wide with a gradient not steeper than 1 in 20, preferably 1 in 60? Will Council agree to a policy on footways that will allow the most vulnerable in the city to use them safely? Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Thank you. Over to you, Councillor Williams. A busy evening tonight. 3 minutes to respond anyway to that to the question.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I assure you that Newcastle City Council take all reasonable steps to ensure that the pavements of Newcastle are safe for all users, including the most vulnerable, such as wheelchair users and those with other disabilities. In regard to new footways, our developer guidance contains the design and construction of roads and accesses to adoptable standards document, which states that all new pavements must be 2 metres wide. As Newcastle is a city with many hills and inclines, it includes some historical pavements which fall outside the guidelines. Although Newcastle City Council will make adjustments as far as is reasonably practical where necessary, they do not have a statutory duty to make these changes to historical pavements. You are correct when you state several years ago, following consultation with various groups and organisations in the city representing disabled people, including the Newcastle Disability Forum, we agreed to change the current design. This was because they explained disabled users find it difficult when the pavement repeatedly rises and falls, and that it was much better if at least part of the pavement is continuous. This is why, where possible, we try to install 900mm wide paving stone along the back of the installation to provide that continuous strip. This came as a result of the advice given in the guidance, which states variable crossfall, such as may be found when travelling along a street with vehicle crossovers, can be irritating as it affects the steering of the wheelchair users and can also cause problems for people with walking difficulties. Local authorities should take these problems into account when considering their policies on front garden parking in residential areas, which may result in the installation of crossovers. It also states if the width of the footway is sufficient, there should be a level 900mm minimum width along the rear side to follow easy passage for wheelchair users. As an example, where the width of a footway is 1.8 metres and a 900mm width strip is laid at the back with a 900mm ramp at the front, it does not mean that this is now 900mm width path, as the full width of the footway remains in use. I can assure you that Newcastle City Council will always endeavour to comply with Disability Discrimination Act and the associated guidelines where reasonably practical, maintaining the footways
30 seconds, Councillor Williams.
Maintaining the footways across the city in a safe and serviceable condition that allows the most vulnerable in the city to use them safely.
Thank you. Back to you then, Mr Moore. 1 minute to respond.
Thank you. Councillor, the government are specific, 1,500mm for a wheelchair user. That is an act of Parliament. The government state that if you work to a 1 in 12 gradient, you have changed that footway into a ramp. You, as a councillors, I'm going to use the word councillors here, you are condemning blind and disabled people and wheelchair users to being unable to use footways and footpaths that have been there for over a century. A lot of you represent terraced areas. Those terraced areas with front gardens will be changed into drives. And when that happens, that footpath that has been safe for a century and usable for a century gets turned into something that wheelchair users and the blind and the disabled can't use. 1 in 12, if you're driving down a hill, right, is classified as a steep hill. Please, councillors, will you stop officers from making our pavements inaccessible to the most vulnerable in society? Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you for having the privilege to speak to you.
Thank you, Mr Moore. Thanks for presenting your question so well. Thanks very much indeed. We now move on to it's item 7 on my list, which is proposed exemption from attendance at council meetings, and I call on Councillor Greenhoff to move this report, to be seconded by Councillor Kilgour.
Move the report, Lord Mayor.
Does Council agree the report recommendation? Agreed. We now move on to the first report from a Cabinet member, which is I call on Councillor Story to move a report on the Youth Justice Plan, to be seconded by Councillor Mains.
Council, Deputy Lord Mayor, I'm very proud to bring to Council tonight the Youth Justice Plan for 23-24. Tonight is a landmark moment for the Youth Justice Service, as this is the first time that the plan has been presented to full Council for debate and sign-off. This fact represents the renewed focus we as a council have on preventing children from being drawn into crime and for keeping our communities safe. It also represents a change at a national level as well. 2023 has represented a year of significant change within the youth justice system at a national level and locally. Our service has simultaneously undergone substantial changes both in its structure and the delivery of services, and we've seen the introduction of a new service manager and transformation in how we deliver preventative services. We've made investments through new posts. We've introduced new support posts, a data analyst, performance management analyst, support officers and a reparation worker. We'll see further investment in the coming months through our focused deterrent services, working in partnership with the Police and Crime Commissioner, Northumbria Police and our voluntary and community partners. The key areas of focus for the service in 2023 have been foundational. It's about getting the basics right. It's about leadership, management, developing operational management, achieving effective oversight by the board. We've had a very strong focus on training this year, and in particular trauma-informed training to develop staff. We want to be ready for inspections that are coming our way in the future. We want to focus on prevention at all levels, and we want to ensure that we've got high quality data, and we've implemented a revised quality assurance framework and a data capture system. Our focus from autumn onwards will be embedding the work of the youth justice system into our existing scrutiny structures. And again, this will be a first, and I will be looking to councillors across the chamber to become involved in this process. Prevention is the work stream which has developed most rapidly over 23. At the latter end of last year, the Ministry of Justice introduced a grant-funded programme, Turnaround. This has been directed at youth justice services to enable them to intervene earlier and to improve outcomes for children aged 10 to 17 who are identified as being on the cusp of entering the criminal justice system. This was implemented in Newcastle as a key priority, and to date we've successfully achieved our targets for Q1 and Q2, and the Ministry of Justice have already noted that we are good in our delivery and we are much further ahead than many other local authorities, and I believe that is firmly down to our drive and determination to support vulnerable children. Finally, I want to say that prevention needs to be firmly on the agenda of every organisation working in this city. It cannot be right that children have to wait until they've committed a crime to come into the youth justice system before their needs and vulnerabilities are met. Who had contact with that child? Who knew what was happening to them in the months and the years leading up to them entering into the criminal justice system? From the children who only get regular meals once they are in prison, and we do hear that, to the boys and girls who are coerced into gangs to escape poverty and isolation. Each case is heartbreaking and in many cases entirely avoidable. All agencies need to understand and invest in their role to ensure children's basic needs are met much earlier. Particular emphasis needs to be given to ensure groups who are already overrepresented in the criminal justice system are supported and protected. And there is compelling evidence that shows that if we intervene earlier with vulnerable children, they are much less likely to commit an offence. Children who commit crimes have a
30 seconds, Councillor Story.
We need to use a trauma-informed lens to hear and see that story, and they are first and foremost children. We must never forget that. We need to be child first in all that we do, and this plan sets our journey and how we will achieve this through working in partnership with others. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Story. As a former member of the Youth Justice Board myself, I particularly welcome those comments. Now, I've got the names of 4 members who wish to either comment or ask questions on this. So can I first of all call Councillor Patterson to be followed by Councillor Lovett?
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. As a former magistrate in the adult court, I have witnessed firsthand by the antecedents from an early age the devastating impact being brought into the criminal justice system can have on a child, their families and whole communities. Many children drawn into criminality come from disadvantaged backgrounds or have had an experience of being in the care system or other difficulties in childhood. They are often our most vulnerable children. Increasingly, we are seeing children with special educational needs being vulnerable to being drawn into crime. We know criminal groups prey on vulnerable children, exploiting and coercing them into committing criminal acts. The youth system's main aim is to prevent offending by children. Prevention needs to be at the heart of everything we do. It is hugely encouraging that this report and the strategic direction it sets out puts children first. It is a step change, taking a child's first approach in all we do with children who are vulnerable to being drawn into crime and exploitation. Children who offend, or as Councillor Story said, first and foremost, and our whole approach needs to recognise this. Sometimes adults, organisations, and as a society, we forget and fail to ensure prevention is embedded across our systems and practices. We also know children who become involved in crime are then more likely to reoffend. Getting in early stop this vicious spiral. The Ministry of Justice estimates that reoffending by children costs society around 1.5 billion per year. Better for this money to be invested in positive attitudes and outcomes for children. Our ambition of our city is to ensure that every child is given the opportunity to thrive, with our communities kept safe and fewer victims. This plan sets out how we begin to achieve this. I command the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. I now call on Councillor Lovett to be followed by Councillor Ali, the next speaker.
Thank you, Sheriff. Councillor Story, can I draw Councillor's attention to the Service Development Plan, page 84 of the agenda? It's page 52 and 54 of the report, specifically to the table of priorities. The author of the report is drawing our attention to progress by providing stakeholders with a RAG, that's red, amber, green traffic light. This provides a visual display to ensure that a successful outcome of the delivery plan is delivered. If we look at the RAG column, 6 of the targets are not started, even though they have a when date of the 8th of the 1st, 23. 15 targets are in progress and 11 targets are completed. Priority 3, the use of custody is completed, but priority 1, or the first priority, reduced first-time entrants, has 2 red targets, which is of concern to me. When a RAG track is used in the project world, red would mean stopped or something is not being executed. Alarm bells would be ringing. Amber would mean beware. Something could go off track, be mindful of delays, and green would mean that things are on track and will be completed on time with no concerns. This RAG table is using red, amber, green. It seems very simply, not started is red, in progress is amber, complete is green. I'm still not convinced that things are in control. 11 months in and not enough greens and no targets or end dates other than what I can see in the report, which is 23-24. Councillor Story, why are some targets not started? Can you confirm when service delivery plan is due to be completed by, and if all the targets will be delivered on time? Is there a recovery plan in place to kick off the not started targets, and are you aware of any other targets that are behind? Are there sufficient resources available to ensure the plan will be completed on time? Are stakeholders committed to delivering the plan, or do their priorities lie elsewhere? Are there any other blockers causing the service delivery plan to possibly fail? And what risks are there of not completing the service delivery plan on time? Councillor Kemp often reminds members of the opposition that we should do our homework. So I do hope that you're able to answer as many of my questions as you can without referring them to the author of the report or sending me an email. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, Councillor Lover. I understand, I'm going through a learning curve here, of course. I understand that I didn't invite, or should have invited, Councillor Mains as seconder to the report. Councillor Mains, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. In a previous life as a Youth and Play Service Manager, I was very instrumental in establishing the forerunner to what was then named the Youth Offender Team. I'm sure Habib himself remembers it. Not only has it had a name change, but it has developed greatly and now offers a much wider range of provision, which is essential. Newcastle Youth Justice Service has many pressures and issues to face. The strategy outlines how they are meeting them face on. Children are safeguarded and restorative justice, trauma-informed and child-first approaches underpin their practice. With the rise in violent crime by some young people, it is essential that staff are given the appropriate training and that the service works well with other partnerships, agencies and services. I was pleased to see in the report and the plan that they've adopted buddy mentors to support staff in their professional development. It's a good step as people learn while they practice. This strategy should reassure members that Newcastle City Council, by investing in its staff, we can also invest in the future of our young people by giving them the opportunities to be challenged, to change, to learn and to thrive. I second this report and thank all staff for their commitment to our children and young people.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mains. And I have two final names, Councillor Ali and Councillor Greenoff, I think did want to speak on this particular report. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I want to welcome the inclusion of the report on tonight's agenda. At the heart of what we do in this area, we have to put residents and the workforce first. Safety and safeguarding are a paramount importance. Making people the priority is fundamental to making sure that we get the best outcomes for everyone. Preventing vicarious trauma for children and young people in a system that has previously been well known for being both physically and mentally traumatic is how we ensure the best outcomes possible. Combining that with good quality working conditions that support staff and aim to prevent burnout are another important part of this. We must raise the issue of how some groups have been historically and are still presently discriminated against in the criminal justice system. No one, especially children and young people, should be treated inequitably within criminal justice, especially if the reason for that treatment is based on bias and prejudice to certain groups. The effects that can have and are perpetrated, especially against young black working class men, are sickening that they can occur still in this modern society. Additionally, those who can often struggle most within the criminal justice system are affected by things that may not be visible on the surface. Neurodivergent people, as well as those with mental health issues, can be particularly affected when treatment is harshest. But this can also have significant effects on working class people or people who have issues with speaking and understanding English, who may not have as many options to get legal and other support as others. Also, there can be significant additional stress caused for people who are pregnant while in the criminal justice system. I am glad to see that set out in this report and the reference to an inclusion policy which actively looks to make sure that children and young people who may be disadvantaged within the system are responded to. I am glad to hear that all staff in Newcastle Youth Justice have taken training to ensure cultural differences are accommodated in criminal justice. I welcome this report to Council and look forward to seeing the good work it will bring in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Ali. Councillor Greenoff, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. And thank you for the report tonight, and I welcome the important work that the Council is doing alongside our partners. I welcome especially the strong emphasis that the report places on partnership work, because we know we can't do this on our own and it takes a community to be able to do this. And I know how welcome the work of the Violence Reduction Unit, which is funded through Kim McGuinness and the Police and Crime Commissioner's offices. That work, alongside the council and others, helps to identify and assess those children of highest risk and support them and divert them away from offending. Figures show that over 350 people, a third of them young people, just this summer have been involved with some of the summer violence reduction programmes, and they've been engaged with and diverted away from activities over the summer in Newcastle, which would have been detrimental to our local communities. So could the Cabinet member speak a bit more about the importance of this preventative partnership working approach and how we can embed that more within our communities? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Greenhoff. Would Councillor Story like to respond to any of the issues that have been raised?
I will respond very briefly because this is about debate rather than questions. Councillor Lovett, I feel a bit discouraged by your comments. I tried to write down all of your questions and I had to give up after question 4. I just couldn't write quickly enough. So I'm afraid what I would like to do is ask you to put that in an email, send it to me. I will then offer to meet with you with the Youth Justice Service Manager to go through that and share your concerns with her. But I do feel very discouraged because, as I said, you know, the Ministry of Justice have noted how far we are ahead, the progress that we're making, and the staff in the Youth Justice Service are listening to and hearing some of the most distressing stories that you could possibly imagine. And I feel very, very proud of them. And I do feel that we are making very, very good progress. And I think what I said at the start was this is a transitional year. We're putting a new quality assurance framework in place, and it is going to take some time to embed that. And while that is happening, we're also working at pace with the Police and Crime Commissioner's Violence Reduction Unit, Northumbria Police, to set up 2 entirely new services in partnership in the community. We're really driving forward this piece of work, so I do want to give you assurances around that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Story. Does Council agree to accept the report? Agreed. We now move on to questions from members, and we have 3 questions marked for oral reply according to my papers. So I call on Councillor Kemp to respond to a question, first of all from Councillor Ferguson. And can I remind Council that I will have 1 supplemental from Councillor Ferguson and then 2 further supplementals only, according to standing orders.
Oh, I thought he was going to ask his question. Sorry. Taking it as read, are we? Okay. Thank you, Councillor Ferguson, for your question. I think it gives me an opportunity to welcome Councillor Williams to her new role to Cabinet, bringing with her a wealth of knowledge and direct first-hand experience which will be invaluable. I'd also like to take this opportunity to place on record my thanks to Councillor Byrne for the enormous amount of work she contributed to the role and to Cabinet. So in direct answer, I'd like to state very clearly I have every confidence that Cabinet and the corporate management team are working very well together. As I stated last month when Councillor Ferguson asked me a very similar question, I am suitably assured that we have a suite of policies and procedures to support staff and members to be able to report or deal robustly with allegations of bullying or harassment. And I will state openly once again that I would encourage anyone in the organisation who experiences bullying in the workplace to report it and to access the support that is available to them. The obvious question to ask Councillor Ferguson is what action you have taken on this matter. This is the 2nd public meeting you have chosen to come forward with questions referencing bullying and toxicity. So can I ask what steps you have taken to address the concerns you appear to be so clear about, apart from, of course, coming from City Council to ask me? Last month, I provided you with a whole suite of policies the City Council has in place to protect all employees and elected representatives, and so I assume that you have followed up at least one of them, as your concern is so significant. Whilst I understand the opposition's desire to seek out issues, I can assure Council, and more importantly, our residents, that there are no issues around management and governance of the organisation, and I can assure you, and certainly your colleague, Councillor Hall, that there is no attempt at whitewashing anything. I can, though, confirm that there is a shared commitment to delivering on our agenda for the benefit of our residents.
Councillor Ferguson, supplemental.
Thank you, Sheriff. Councillor Kemp asks what I would do and what I am doing. Well, I'm asking questions in this chamber because I think that is exactly what I should do when accusations are made in the public sphere. And I think you can read from the fact that I am back here asking questions again that the assurance that I sought at the last meeting I do not feel was fully given. Could I ask, by way of follow-up, Councillor Kemp, when did you first learn of Councillor Byrne's concerns?
Councillor Burns has raised on a number of occasions concerns about frustrations within the organisation, and I think it's fair to say everyone who works in a large-scale, multifaceted organisation will always experience some degree of frustration. I'm sure you do as the Leader of the Opposition, and therefore they've been raised to a degree of significance very, very recently.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ferguson. As I mentioned before, I can take 2 supplementals. I have 3 names on my list. I notice that Councillor Koresh has already made his way to the microphone. So the second supplemental I'll take is Councillor Campion, and that's all I can take in terms of supplementals.
Thank you. As a member of the Audit Committee, I attended the most recent meeting, and at that meeting, the Chief Executive of Newcastle City Council mentioned that council officers work well with elected members in a check and challenge role and discuss issues together. Can the leader elaborate on how this collaboration between officers and council members has resulted in a more effective governance in decision making?
Thank you, Councillor Qureshi. I think fundamentally collaboration is everything. It's the foundation of which local government is built upon. I think from the very outset it was clear that this administration was committed to that working process. We set out in establishing a medium-term financial plan and other strategic documents. Clearly all of those are reliant entirely on collaboration, cooperation, constructive challenge, checks and balances both ways, and a strong working relationship between the individual cabinet members, the cabinet collectively, and the senior management team. I'd equally point out that the development of the inclusive economic strategy and our anti-poverty strategy have been built upon a collaboration, not simply just with senior officers, but actually with senior representatives of organisations across the city. And actually, I'm pleased to say that all of the policies and strategies that we have developed in our time in leadership have not only been supported and collaborated together, they've been supported and endorsed by organisations across the city, which I think demonstrates true collaboration. Finally, I would also point out that each and every one of the Cabinet reports are brought forward to this Council chamber, and I think it's evidence, as we've already heard, in every report that's brought, that it is about collaboration and cooperation between the officer team and the political team.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kemp. And Councillor Campion.
Thank you, Sheriff. Following on from comments I made in the September Constitutional Committee meeting about the importance of maintaining separate audit and standards committees, and in light of recent media reporting, does the Leader of Council agree with me that to restore trust in our management and governance, we must ensure robust and separate audit and standard committees that are led by independent chairs? Thank you.
I think you'll find it highly unlikely I'm ever going to agree with you entirely. I agree with some principles, absolutely. So I think the importance of robust audit and standards is absolutely essential. I think the importance of independence in those actions is important. And I think we agreed at Constitutional Committee that further work was underway, looking about the validity of the merger or otherwise, but ensuring, emphatically ensuring, that we have absolutely robust processes to carry out and fulfil our obligations through the audit requirements, but also as standards.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kemp. If you want to stay at the microphone, because I think you're on again shortly. And we've got an oral question from Councillor Stone as set out in the papers. So if you'd like to respond to that.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I'd start by observing that Councillor Stone has actually asked 3 questions, but hey-ho. I don't recognise the climate that Councillor Stone describes in the first part of his questions, but once again, and to be clear, this administration takes the issue of bullying very seriously. If anyone has concerns that they should feel safe in reporting them through one of our policies and procedures I've listed earlier and at last month's meeting. I would hope that if opposition members had any concerns directly or raised with them, that they would encourage the reporting of such behaviour rather than waiting to make allegations at a City Council meeting. I would question the reasoning for that. To his second point, any organisation of the size of the City Council will inevitably see an element of churn in its workforce. So it would be foolish for me to state no one will ever move on. People seek change for a multitude of reasons: career development, opportunities in other organisations, and I've been vocal in my support for career development of our staff. Inevitably, there is churn, and we support that. And we want to retain our very best staff, and we want to grow our staff, but ultimately we also want to allow people to achieve their ambitions. People also leave for other reasons: retirement, care and responsibilities, and illness, and I'm sure he realises it would be totally inappropriate for me to disclose or hint at any such personal information in a public meeting. I believe there will be any, so as for if I believe there will be any, and I quote, departures from either side, I don't know, Greg, but what I would say to any of your colleagues who wish to join an ambitious, progressive administration focused on delivering for our residents and not spending all of its time on gossip and conjecture, then please do come and have a conversation. The door's always open. I'm not clear why Councillor Stone has conflated publication of plans with the 2 earlier questions, but I'm pleased that he did, as it allows me to make a public comment. We've been clear about the time frame for the delivery of a future council plan. At the most recent audit committee meeting, which we publicly stated that it was scheduled for February-March time in alignment with the budget. This was a point reiterated in the meeting at Councillor Stone's own request. We have a council plan. This is alive and available for all to read on our website, and it is the cornerstone of our strategic planning. Inevitably, as we introduce new strategic priorities, there is a need to capture this in a refresh, which is no small task, and nor should it be, being so fundamental to our organisation. This work is informed by many factors, including ongoing active engagement with the workforce. This is a comprehensive process of constructive testing and challenging, and should take time. We've been informed by our strategic planning, the delivery of our priorities, the continued active engagement of our workforce, including the next round of our colleague engagement events later this month, and the independent input of the corporate peer review, which also recommends...
10 seconds, Councillor Kemp.
So there is no delay to the publication of your corporate plan. I'm not aware of any commitment to produce a transformational plan or digital plan. These are key programmes of work that are carried out through the usual channels of the Council.
Spot on. Well done. Thank you very much, Councillor Kemp. Supplemental, Councillor Stone, and then I have a further supplemental from Councillor Chisholm. Well, Councillor Chisholm wants to ready himself. Okay, back to you, Councillor Stone.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Thank you for the response from the leader. I would point out to him that there have been a number of assurances given previously about the production of the corporate strategy for the council, and they have not been met. There has been no recent or definitive statements made about the publication of the transformation plan or digital transformation plan. And I will conclude my remarks by following Councillor Ferguson's example and asking you a direct question. Can you, Councillor Kemp, confirm to Council that whether you have received correspondence from a very senior figure in this council regarding their concerns about the corporate governance of this council, and can you confirm what you are going to do about those concerns to us? And I would love to have a meeting with you to talk about that face to face, so I will be coming to see you in your office if you want me to do that.
Okay. I'd really rather, just let me know when you'll be and I won't be. But direct answer.
You just lied to the council then. You promised that you'll meet
colleagues, let's try and keep this civil.
If you want to try, can you please say your question? So I didn't understand your question. You said something about digital, something about transformation.
Can you confirm that you have received in recent days an expression of serious concerns about the corporate government, the integrity of the corporate governance of this council?
Sorry, okay, Councillor Stone, what you said is, can you confirm someone from within this organisation?
From within this organisation,
Are you talking about an independent chair of audit?
I am indeed.
Thank you. Yes, I've received communication. And
so what are you going to do about it, Leader?
As I've communicated to him and your leader of your group, that we are organising a response which will be committed in the week commencing the 6th. Unfortunately, it's delayed due to staffing holidays, which I'm sure you would agree is an essential part of being a good employer.
Can you give an indication
Councillor Stone, Councillor Stone, Councillor Stone
on this, though,
Councillor Stone,
officer response to officer holidays?
Councillor Stone, Councillor Stone, Councillor Stone, you're allowed one question, not three. Okay, thank you, Councillor Kemp. Over to Councillor Chisholm.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. My question for the Leader of the Council is, do you think that the Council is compromised by the fact that the corporate plan is being updated?
Thank you, Councillor Chisholm. I think I will go back to Councillor Stone's previous comments because I think they were remarkably disingenuous. As a member of the Audit Committee, he's well aware that there is a corporate and council plan in place. It is due for a refresh. That is not simply creating something new. So there is no risk to the organisation. In fact, it's extraordinarily good governance to have an existing plan in place, but also continuously to review and revise. And as circumstances change, which inevitably they do, in the times of austerity and the challenging financial circumstances we face, with the new opportunities that come through devolution, it's essential that we ensure that our corporate plan and council plan will be effective and fit for purpose going forward. It's not for me to comment on the original council plan. What it is to say is that we have something there that is a constitutional requirement, which he knows. He did receive the assurance in the September meeting at audit, so I think it's quite disingenuous to interpret council officers' responses to him, that they set out a clear timeline. So I think we should look at the minutes of those meetings and perhaps share them, Councillor Stone. So in further answer to you, Councillor Chisholm, is I think it's extraordinarily good practice and good governance that a refresh and review takes place of the existing plan to ensure that we're aligned alongside the budget and the medium-term financial plan to deliver a robust organisational plan going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Kemp. Thank you. We now move on to the next oral question. And can I remind members that a question is a question and not a series of questions. So this is from Councillor Kane, as set out in the papers, and I have Councillor Williams to respond to it. Yes, Councillor Williams, over to you.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I took part in the Task and Finish group over the summer period where we discussed waste decarbonisation. Councillors Kane and Taylor were also part of this group. In response, we submitted a joint report to Climate Change Committee in September. During our meetings, we looked at how waste to landfill can be minimised with an aspiration to achieve zero waste. We were clear in our discussions that we would wish to minimise waste going to both incineration and landfill in favour of as much material being recycled as possible. The Council has a statutory duty to arrange for the collection and disposal of household waste and, if requested, of commercial and industrial waste, including making arrangements for the separate collection of waste capable of being recycled. We meet that duty by collecting residual waste and recycling from the curbside and from trade customers. Residents may also deposit recycling and waste at our household waste and recycling centres. Not only does the Council provide the curbside recycling service, we also have an education and engagement team who engage with residents, schools, community groups and businesses to encourage them to reduce consumption, to improve recycling, and so reduce the proportion of residual waste that is produced. Even after maximising recycling, there is still a significant amount of residual waste produced each year by our city. Energy recovery and landfill currently provide the infrastructure we need to deal with this waste. My appointment to Cabinet does not change the Council's position in in relation to utilisation of energy recovery to deal with the residual waste. I will use my time as Cabinet Member for a connected, clean city to promote the waste hierarchy, reduce, reuse, recycle and recover, to residents and businesses, such that the amount of residual waste sent to energy recovery and landfill is minimised, whilst keeping sight of the aspiration to achieve zero waste in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Back to you, Councillor Kane, for your supplemental, and then that's followed by Councillor Keynes and Councillor Taylor, who have also indicated supplemental questions as well.
Yes, thank you, Sheriff, and thank you, Councillor Williams. Can I welcome Councillor Williams to her Cabinet position, although I held out hope that it would be a change of policy rather than a change of principle. On zero waste, can I ask, overview and scrutiny were recently given a document, the report from her predecessor, which the first version they got had a commitment to zero waste in it. The second version they got had that commitment removed, and then the whole paper was withdrawn from the scrutiny panel. Can she update us on the current state of the Council's approach to zero waste? Thank you.
Councillor Kane.
Lord Mayor, can I make a point of order that Councillor Kane is making comments about the personal integrity of members of this council? I don't think it's acceptable. It's ridiculous assertions to be making about other members, about their principles and policy and such comments. It's just nasty.
I don't know if you wanted to observe on that, Councillor Kane. I mean, there's certainly... I didn't pick up anything. I didn't pick up anything too untoward, but
personally, Sheriff, I think when somebody is a cabinet member and is responsible for policy, then their previous pronouncements on certain important, very important elements of policy should be held to account. And certainly, compared to some of the personal abuse I've had from members opposite, there was nothing abusive, and certainly not intended to be abusive amongst in my question.
Well, maybe I can appeal then to people to stick to policy and not to personalities. If we stray into personalities, sometimes it can become a little bit...
There was nothing about personality in my question.
Okay.
Everything I commented on was on the record.
Back to you, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Councillor Kane. I don't feel my principles have changed either. And I look forward to working with you and Councillor Taylor further on the work that we've started. I'm not in a position to comment on what happened at overview and scrutiny. I wasn't at the meeting and we were asked not to have a political presence, so I have no comment.
Councillor Keynes.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Question to the Cabinet Member. Did the Task and Finish Group on decarbonisation of municipal waste make any recommendations regarding incineration?
Thank you for your question. The group noted that the Waste Action Strategy is due to be reviewed next year and, in its recommendations, suggested introducing more flexibility to follow the waste hierarchy where energy from waste sits below reduce, reuse and recycle. It did not recommend a change in the Council's waste management policy with regard to incineration.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Councillor Williams, you will be aware that recycling rates across the city have really not risen in many years. And I'm particularly concerned with further loss of recycling facilities, and I'm referring to the removal of the facility at Sainsbury's in Heaton. This is a national decision by Sainsbury's, I understand, but it does greatly reduce the ability of my residents to recycle. And I'm also concerned about the appalling state of the recycling containers in various parts of the city which don't even have proper labels on about what you can recycle. What measures is she going to make to try and improve recycling and get that rate back up where it ought to be?
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
It's very much as part of the recommendations that we jointly made that we need to look at the psychology of waste and people's behaviours, that we have an education programme where we're trying to encourage greater recycling. We've had very successful pop-ups in neighbourhoods, and I'd like to see that roll out further. There's a great deal we can be doing, and I will be pushing that forward.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. We'll now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is a portfolio report, and I believe we have... Sorry. All right. Just been pointed out by my helpful assistant here that 4 questions marked for written reply have been circulated with responses in the supplemental agenda, which is somewhere amongst all these papers, and also published on the website. So just to draw members' attention to that. We're now moving on to what would appear to be the first portfolio report, and I'm told that we have 25 minutes. And bearing in mind, this is from Councillor Story, but bearing in mind I've got a whole sequence of people wanting to ask questions, can we try and keep it as succinct as possible, if you wouldn't mind? Over to you, Councillor Story.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, Council. I'm very proud to present to you all tonight the first Growing City report since I took over responsibility for this vitally important portfolio. I want to start by saying that safeguarding and education are, in my view, and I hope your view, the most important functions that a council delivers. The work within this portfolio is not just about making a difference in young people's lives today, but it's also about securing the strength and success of our city's future. It's about addressing poverty and the escalating costs of living crisis and ensuring, as far as we can, that everyone has access to the support they need to lead meaningful lives. I must also emphasise the significance of getting the basics right in every interaction we have with children and families throughout our city. It's crucial to acknowledge the various barriers that children and young people from all walks of life continue to confront within our city, and this report openly addresses and refrains from downplaying the multifaceted challenges that our services face daily. I was very, very clear about that when I was constructing the report with officers. We must not shy away from things that are difficult. One of the most fundamental challenges we confront is the alarming prevalence of child poverty, a nationwide issue that demands our attention and action. Child poverty is not confined to Newcastle. It is, of course, a national problem and one that central government failures have allowed to reach unprecedented levels. And many of you will have already seen the report on destitution that came out, to our shame, just a few days ago. It is a grim reality for 11 children in a classroom of 30. 11 of them will be facing poverty and destitution. And destitution has become an endemic part of our current society, and its impact on children and young people, preventing them to be able to learn, is fundamental. To improve our city's future, the lives of residents, and the future of all our children, we must work to end destitution and child poverty in society. In the face of these difficulties, I could not be prouder of the countless success stories and achievements that we have seen as a result of the unrelenting efforts of staff. I'd like to touch on the incredible diversity of our young population that we serve, and Newcastle thrives in its cultural diversity, inclusion and welcoming spirit, and we extend that to our schools. Our schools boast 135 different first languages, and in some schools as many as 55 different languages are spoken. Children and young people from black and minoritised ethnic groups constitute nearly 40% of children in primary schools in Newcastle, and this is a testament to our city's unique character and inclusivity. The services within this portfolio are far-reaching, and it's essential for the well-being of our residents, from the early years sector support team, offering support to the youngest members of our community, to the Newcastle and Families team, working to identify needs and provide timely assistance to families. Their efforts are tireless. Public health plays a pivotal role through the Fair and Healthy Childhood team, which collaborates with key partners. And our social care teams are dedicated to ensuring the safety of babies, children and young people, whether through our corporate parenting responsibilities or assisting families to deal with the various challenges they face. Just last month, we received incredibly positive feedback from Ofsted, who noted that our front door services were very good. In fact, they could not think of one single recommendation. We pushed them because we really wanted to be better. And what we did hear from them was the one thing that we could perhaps do is work with partners to make their referral information clearer and better. And that's a challenge that we will rise to. I am running out of time. I cannot believe it. I've got so much to say. I would like to extend my appreciation to all of my colleagues, particularly those in the corporate parenting group. I know that this report makes for very difficult reading. It is a disgrace that we must acknowledge the changing landscape of local authority functions, a transformation driven by a decade of cuts. Local authorities have evolved significantly, grappling with an avalanche of crisis service demands without due acknowledgement or support from the government. I call on government tonight to set new, accurate standards for the role of local authorities in delivering life-saving services to children and families. It is time they funded us properly to be able to carry out this essential work.
Story, can we wind it up, please?
Oh, do I have to? I've got so much to say.
The things that the things unsaid will be in your report, and I'm sure that all members will have read your report, the details in the report. So we are on quite a tight time scale. So if we can just finish there.
I will stop.
Okay. As I say, I've got several other people who wish to speak. I'll call first of all on Councillor Penny Evans. You'll be followed by Councillor PJ Morrissey.
Yes, sorry. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Story, for your report, and thank you. Put on record my thanks to all those officers who work in this area. A couple of weeks ago now, I think it's about 2.5 weeks ago, there was storm damage to the roof of Jesmond Park Academy, and residents and parents who have been contacting me because they are getting updates on every 2 days about when the school's going to open. So I just wondered if you had any update, or if you could tell us what you've been doing to action this, and maybe some of the work that you've been doing behind the scenes to support our parents in the city. Thank you.
Councillor Morrissey.
Thank you, Lord
Followed by,
Mayor.
can I just say, Councillor Morrissey, followed by Councillor Keynes.
Right. Thank you again, Lord Mayor.
Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry.
Right. Third time lucky. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I'd like to thank Councillor Story for her first report as portfolio holder. And I'd also like to record my thanks to her and to all the officers who work daily and tirelessly in the Directorate of Children Education and Skills. We are indeed in a time in the city where there is great deprivation and several challenges. I don't intend to go through the whole report line for line, but I have a few areas that I would like to ask for further clarification. On page 8, it says that across the city, we have a lower than expected uptake of free school meals from those children who are eligible. Is there anything put in place to find out, to establish why not all children are taking up their claim and their entitlement? The second thing is there's a lot of work being done now to find out why these children are not taking up their meals. What is being put in place to remedy that, please? And then I'm also happy about the children and babies, the 1,001 critical days. We all know how important it is, a great start in life is for all children. And then the third thing is children who come under the heading of SEND. They have extra needs over and beyond other children. What's being done to help their assessment to be completed so that they can access the education that they are entitled to? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Morrissey. And it's just been drawn to my attention that this is your maiden speech during this current term of office.
It's my second one.
So congratulations on that. So Councillor Cairns, followed by Councillor Chisholm. I don't know if Councillor Chisholm wants to... okay, Councillor Cairns.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. And I want to thank the portfolio holder for the report and officers for all the work that they've done. High quality early education and childcare benefits all families, but it makes the biggest difference to disadvantaged children. However, the Joseph Rowntree report of May 2023, Tackling Disadvantage Through Childcare, indicates that the new government childcare support expansion will disproportionately benefit the most well-off. How will we continue to meet the needs of disadvantaged families when the government's new entitlement formula, which focuses on working families, comes into force in 2024?
Thank you, Councillor Cairns. I've now got Councillor Ferguson, followed by Councillor Rahman.
Thank you, Sheriff. I'm sure as many of you are aware, the admissions policies of academies and academy trusts are for them to decide rather than being set by the council. But I am aware that at the moment the admissions policy for Gosforth Academy and the Great Park Academy suggests that there could be a lottery system for some of the incoming intake that means that they could be randomly allocated to one or other academy, and this has caused some consternation and a bit of correspondence with me. Could the Cabinet Member outline what work is being done? And it is clear that we can work constructively with our academy trusts where it matters. So I'm interested in what the Cabinet Member is doing to address this admissions policy and to try and provide a measure of reassurance to families that we aren't going to be in the strange situation where two or more families are crossing over on the Great North Road to go to school in the morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Can I just apologise to Councillor Chisholm there? I'm trying to multitask here and I'm not used to it. So can I go to Councillor Chisholm before I go to Councillor Rahman?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. No problem. My question for Councillor Story is about the section towards the end of her report where she's talking about developing a kind of inspirational youth leadership approach. And in particular, she says that she wants participants to move from being participants rather to become young leaders. So I'm very interested in that, and I wonder if you could talk a bit more about that, please.
And now, last but not least, Councillor Rahman.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Can I thank Councillor Story for an excellent report. Youth service plays a vital part in socially engaging people, fostering and building bridges across communities. This informal education is vital and key in preventing and tackling various of antisocial issues and, most importantly, safeguarding and protecting young people from harm's way. We've seen the decimation of the youth services. Bare provision is now delivered by voluntary sectors with a huge gap in specialist provision for young men and for BAME people. And in my ward, there is a high need for dedicated youth provision for boys and young men. Can I ask the Cabinet lead to explore all opportunities for additional scopes to offer specialist youth provision for boys and young men? Ideally, ideal location for me is going to be within Elsick Park at the Pavilion. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rahman. Councillor Story, I don't know we've got about 5 minutes left on this item. I don't know if you can encapsulate a response in 5 minutes, or some of it you might wish to respond to people in writing, but I'll leave it up to you.
I would like to respond to everybody if I could. And,
in 5 minutes, Councillor Story.
And to give a very robust explanation to people. I think there's been some very amazing questions there, and some of them have really made me think. First question, I'm going to try and take them in order. So the first question was from Councillor Claire Penny-Evans, and she has raised something which is contemporary, absolutely of the moment, around the Desmond Park Academy closure. The school has been closed due to storm damage, and I just really want to assure Council tonight that we are doing everything that we can. Mark Patton could not be working harder. He has been in contact with the Academy Trust on a daily basis. We are working with the Department for Education around this, and we are working with Jesmond Park Academy Trust too. I want to assure people that safeguarding is first and foremost in our minds. Free school meals, which is incredibly important. We've ensured that vouchers have been delivered to families while education hasn't been taking place. And the education that has been taking place is online. So we are making huge efforts, as are the school, to get it back and open and running as soon as possible. One of the things that has been brought to my attention, I met with residents last week, and one of the things councillors and families have said is that the communication really does need to improve with the school, and that is something that we've really been pushing for. Families and children need to know when they're going to be able to be in school, and they need much better timing than we've currently been getting, so that needs to be addressed. The next question was from Councillor Morrissey. Councillor Morrissey, you had 2 questions. The first one was about free school meals. Actually, we do have a fairly good uptake of free school meals, but I want to make sure that every single child who is entitled to free school meals gets what they are entitled to, because it's a right. The reasons why children don't take up free school meals, I think, are fairly well known, really. Shame, stigma, sometimes families just don't know that they're entitled to them. And one of the priorities that I have for the next year is to make sure that we really drive up so every single child in this city who's entitled to free school meals gets that entitlement. Where's the next one? Let's have a look. Councillor Cairns, you talked about nursery education, good quality childcare, and that's something that's incredibly important. We have an excellent team here at Newcastle City Council who work incredibly hard to make sure that anyone who is entitled to free nursery places gets those places. We've got a good uptake of 2-year-old places for our most disadvantaged families. Take-up rate is around about 88%. That's 14% above the national average. But again, we really need to be striving to make sure that all families who are entitled get that support. The early years sector team and the early years funding specialists, as I've said, are outstanding. And they are really working hard to expand that to ensure that parents understand what the new offer is. Next question. Next question was from Councillor Chisholm, and you asked about the youth leadership. This is something that I'm really excited about. It's a priority to develop over the next 12 months. It's in very early stages, but really we really want to support young people who we work with to access wider opportunities. We've had some small successes. They're quite modest at the moment with members of our youth panel, and we've developed social action projects, training for schools. We've got our School Streets ambassadors. But I'm really looking towards organisations like West Ham Women and Girls, who are exemplars of good practice and have really good progression routes. And they've got a long history of supporting young people from using their centre to then becoming youth workers and peer workers. And this is a really big issue for the youth work sector because we've lost such a lot of staff over the last 10 years. So developing that youth leadership scheme is going to be incredibly important. How long have I got left?
I would say about 2 minutes, Councillor Story.
Right, okay, 2 minutes. Councillor Ferguson, I was not aware of the detail of the policy of Gosforth Academy. That's something that I will take back to officers to work through because I entirely appreciate what you're saying. On a personal level, I feel very strongly that parents should not have to take their children to, different schools, and wherever possible, we do need to ensure that siblings and family groups are connected and are together in the same school. So that is something that I will pick up. Who else do Who have I forgotten? Is any? Habib, how could I have forgotten Habib's excellent question, which is about youth work and boys and young men from black and minoritised communities in particular. Habib, I entirely agree with your comments. The youth service has been absolutely decimated over the last 13 years. And as a council, particularly in the last few years, we've really tried to harness whatever grants and funding that we can get to start building that back up. We've got £500,000 that we got from the lotteries, and we're working in partnership with them to develop the youth fund. And we have other grants and monies that have come in from the Police and Crime Commissioner, but it is not enough. I think boys and young men who are on the periphery sometimes, who are lonely, who are isolated, really do need a youth worker. They need a youth club. They need, to be supported. And, we do have some provision. We have organisations we've got the Patchwork Project in Benwell in Elsick, which supports high levels of black and minoritised young men. We've got outreach workers working onto the Jubilee estate, and we've also got Edge North East, who are out 5 nights a week supporting young people. I'm really pleased to tell you, Habib, that conversations have just started to identify a centre-based provision in Elsick for young people. And I very much want you to be part of those conversations. So it could be a mix of open access, outreach provision, and we really need the voices of children and young people and advocates and leaders working in that area to come together to design that. And I think your point about, working, standalone work with black and minoritised young men is absolutely a priority. It's really important to do that piece of work, and I look forward to having further discussions with you about how we can develop that.
Thank you.
I think that's it.
Thank you, Councillor. Because of your obvious passion for your portfolio, I've allowed a little bit of extra time there.
I don't feel I've done justice to a lot of those questions, so okay. I will send out a more detailed response so people can see what is going on.
Thank you. We now move to the next Cabinet report from Councillor Ali, and a bit of advance warning on this, that we've got 25 minutes and I've got 11 people wanting to speak or ask questions, so can we try and work on that basis, that we've got presenting the report and then 11 speakers. Brevity is the, I think, is the plea.
Well, that's a challenge. Let's see how I get on. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. So, as the Cabinet Member for Dynamic City, I'm really pleased to bring this report to full council tonight, which includes a variety of services, including housing, our provision for homelessness, planning and regulatory services. I hope you will have read the report. However, I do want to highlight some key areas. In recent years, there have been wider legislative changes which have had an impact on the housing sector, and further changes are planned next year. Due to the rapidly changing context within which housing services are operating, I led the Council in deciding that it was necessary to undertake a review of all housing-related services, so we can determine the most appropriate approach to delivering these services in future years. Following an options analysis conducted independently, Cabinet identified a preferred option in July this year, being to transfer YHN services to the Council due to the strategic and financial benefits that could be achieved. Before deciding whether to proceed with this approach, a test of resident opinion has been conducted between the 1st of September and the 15th of October this year. The process was widely promoted through our website, in BSL and other formats, and included a range of options for in-person or online engagement. The voluntary sector were also engaged to respond. The results are currently being compiled prior to being reported back to Cabinet in November. On the 29th of November, Cabinet will decide whether or not to proceed with this option. In preparation for that decision, a project team has been mobilised which would work to deliver a transfer. Regarding new build properties, another 1,239 new homes were built between 22 and 23, with 205 of these being affordable homes. One example of this is the rise in Scotswood, where during the past year, an additional 140 new homes have been built. We are commissioning a full stock conditional survey of all the homes owned by the council, which will provide increased accuracy of the key information we hold about the stock and assist with planning and targeting the investment needed to ensure homes are decent. We want to provide a positive and easy journey to all residents in the city who need to access a home in the social housing sector. Last year, a total of 3,468 clients were supported to understand their housing options and 391 tenants supported to sustain their tenancies through our private rented service. Over the last year, 567 adaptations and 2,840 minor adaptations were completed with a disabled facilities grant to assist with everyday living. With regards to housing for refugees, the government's streamlined asylum process means that up to 403 single and 73 family refugee households will need housing by the end of December 23. The government have also reduced the effective notice period to 7 days, and there is a motion that deals with this issue later on the agenda. We are working to manage demand and increase supply through bringing back long-term voids, incentivising private landlords and accessing government grants to offset the costs of increased demand. To date, we have managed to meet this demand without having to use expensive hotels. Moving on, Lord Mayor, to my report on equality, diversity and inclusion, to which I will refer to as EDI tonight. As the lead Cabinet member with responsibility for EDI, I am very proud to present this report, which sets out the Council's approach and commitment to eliminate discrimination and advance equality of opportunity, as we have a responsibility to lead by good example. Through this report, I am seeking to make EDI action more visible so that anyone working for the Council or in partnership with us or as a resident using our services, they are assured that they will always be treated fairly and with respect. Within this approach, I will outline some examples of how we will meet these ambitions. Our EDI strategy is working to develop an effective strategy for the Council. This will drive change within our organisation in the city, whilst always ensuring that our colleagues, partners and residents remain at the heart of our thinking and decision-making. To ensure effectiveness, our strategy will be embedded into the corporate framework and championed at every level within the organisation. This strategy will clearly articulate our ambition and priorities, highlight key actions and bring together the EDI actions already embedded within existing Council strategies. We want the Council to be a beacon of best practice for EDI, and this strategy will become our roadmap for this transformation and will use the nationally recognised equality benchmarking tools of the Equality Framework for Local Government and Diverse by Design to help us with this. Our anti-racist city charter, following on from the motion I delivered last year at full council, we are making an active and conscious effort to have conversations about what it means in practice to be anti-racist, both as an organisation and across the city. This is an important milestone in our ongoing effort to combat racism and includes work to develop a race charter to articulate our stance on racial discrimination and to reinforce our vision of the inclusive city we aspire to be. We will engage and work with people experiencing all forms of racism to develop a charter that reflects the lived experiences of our communities. The charter will outline the key actions that are needed to redress inequality in our city and which complements our support for Unison's anti-racism charter. I've just opened the Unison's Year of Black Workers event here at the Civic last week. We want to be an inclusive employer. We will lead the way, embedding ambitious practice that challenges us and influences others in the city to do more and to do better. We know that having a diverse workforce is required to better represent our communities and offer a different perspective around the table that comes from lived experiences. Diversity and inclusion brings a wide range of talents and skills into the organisation that can ignite a culture of loyalty and solidarity, increase staff retention, create a sense of belonging, and improve productivity. We have already started this journey, and since February this year, we held citywide recruitment roadshows. Over 1,000 residents and visitors from our diverse communities who were seeking employment opportunities were able to access employability support offered by the Council, YHN and various partners. We are creating a corporate EDI board. In order to monitor our work and amplify the voices of our diverse communities, we are establishing an EDI board led by the Chief Executive and Director of Workforce and Inclusion to provide clear strategic leadership of EDI. As well as steering the Council's overall approach to EDI, the Board will provide powerful advocacy for inclusive practices in the City's communities and businesses. The Board will report to me as the Council's lead on related issues in the City, including those faced by specific communities. And finally, I want to conclude by reiterating and emphasising the importance of EDI, both within our communities and workforce. Equality, diversity and inclusion are everybody's business, and we all have a part to play in building a fairer city for all. My leadership style is working collaboratively, and I'm intent on harnessing a lot of varied talent and perspective from across our city, and not just at the City Council. I look forward to working together to build a more inclusive city for all, and I want to thank my comrades and council staff that have helped me put this report together and will further and advance the work of the EDI, not just in the council but across the city. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Ali. You've actually set us more of a challenge than I saw. I've actually got 12 speakers, and I'm reminded by my colleagues here that I've got less than 15 minutes on this item. So I'll call some names. If anyone, I don't know, I'm having timers pushed in front of me and all sorts. If anybody wants to forego their right to speak, please let me know, but I'll call some names anyway. So I'll go for Councillor Walker and Councillor Smith, first of all. Councillor Jason Smith.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and I'd like to thank Councillor Ali for a report this evening. You mentioned that you're working to implement a whole system housing approach and the proposal to bring housing services back under control from YHN. Will this whole system housing approach involve residents and current social housing tenants to ensure we can take and act on feedback from those residents to ensure that best practice is put into place from those directly affected? On bringing services back under council control, will this allow us to build more affordable and council homes that the city is crying out for? And lastly, on new housing estates, there are often long delays in bringing these estates up to adoptable standards. What can the council do to hold the developers to account on this? Thank you.
So now Councillor Smith, to be followed by Councillor Rahman.
Thank you for an informative report. The report mentions money raised through the Community Infrastructure Levy, which is very welcome funding. Little Leamington paid SIL for local infrastructure, but this funding was used for facilities that most young people in Leamington cannot access. Can we look at ways of using more of the SIL funding to benefit the communities directly affected by developments and more engagement with members on how these funds are used? Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor.
I now have Councillor Rahman, of course, followed by Councillor Huddart.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Can I thank the Cabinet member for her report, and can I thank Councillor Ali and commend her for her work and lead, especially on the equality, diversity and inclusion, developing the race charter to confirm and demonstrate to our citizens how serious this council takes issues of inequality. We will be supporting our citizens, those subjected to crimes of race, hate and Islamophobic crimes. Such crimes, we both personally understand the pain, effect and impact it has on us. I believe this is the first time that this council have received such an equality, diversity and inclusion report. Can you tell us why you've brought this to this council this month? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Huddart now followed by Councillor Greenhoff.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Ali for the report. And my questions might seem a bit long, so I'd be happy to put them in writing if you'd prefer to give me an answer in writing. The first one, you mention on page 6 about the prevention of homelessness and the support for residents facing problematic debt. And I'm sure as Cabinet member she is aware that over 100 local authorities very recently met to discuss the financial problems relating to homelessness and the provision of temporary accommodation, and who have just made representation to the government about the effect this service is having on their already stretched resources. In fact, I think it's Hastings have said it's going to bankrupt them, their costs. So can I ask if she or any of the other officers from Newcastle attended this meeting and what information or lessons about the management of this cost pressure were received and how we might use it? So that was the first one. On the second question, on page 11, you mentioned the 205 properties built which were described as affordable. I'd like to ask how many of these were A, social housing, and B, of a size suitable for families. And the final question relates to the reasons that were given for bringing YHN back in-house. Were about the ways the service could be delivered more effectively and efficiently. Since the announcement of the housing review, in the past year, YHN has lost its Director of Finance, its Company Secretary, its Managing Director, the Head of Assets and Development, and the Independent Chairman. So I'd like to ask the Cabinet Member if she has any concerns about how this level of expertise can be replaced if the transition is to go ahead, and how this loss can contribute to efficiency and effectiveness. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Huddard. Now we've got Councillor Greenhoff to be followed by Councillor Campion.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and thank you to the Cabinet Member for her report. As we go into the winter months and with the continued high fuel costs, we know that many residents are concerned about the impact of potential damp and mould increasing across the social housing sector during winter months. I'm aware of the local Get Ready for Winter events that are being held by your Newcastle to provide advice and free dehumidifiers, clothing horses, humidity readers and other equipment to help prevent mould and damp. But could the Cabinet Member say what further action and help can be provided to residents to support them during these winter months to ensure that damp and mould doesn't impact on the health or on the properties? Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Councillor Greenhoff. Councillor Campion to be followed by Councillor Savian.
Thank you, Sheriff. Residents across Newcastle Great Park continually raise with me their frustration at the lack of enforcement action from the council and the glacial speed at which the council has pushed developers to bring our estate up to adoptable standards. What work is the Cabinet Member doing to ensure she is holding developers' feet to the fire on their commitments and to finally get Newcastle Great Park adopted? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Savian to be followed by Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Ali, for the very important report on equality, diversity and inclusion. EDI is pivotal in fostering a workplace atmosphere where everyone feels valued and included. My question is, how will you measure progress on the work on EDI? Thank you.
Councillor Taylor to be followed by Councillor Chisholm.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Councillor Ali, on page 8 of your report under trading standards, you mentioned that we have worked hard to tackle the sale of vapes to children. Obviously, this is a subject we've discussed in Council and is very important, so could you elaborate on exactly what's been done and what effect it's had?
If Councillor Sadiq can make yourself ready as well for the next one. Councillor Chisholm.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ali, for that very impressive report. Sorting out the housing crisis and inequality in one report. A lot of work for you. My question is about what you report on the problem of dealing with damp in the council's housing stock, in particular in the city, which I know is a serious problem for a lot of residents. I was very pleased to read about the measures that you said that the council is undertaking. Can you tell us about the progress of those measures, how they're developing and what the plans are for the future, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chisholm. And we've got Councillor Sadiq followed by Councillor Samad.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Ali, for your report. The question that I have with regarding to your report on our EDI, how will you ensure all the diverse community lived and experience are represented in this work?
Thank you. Finally, Councillor Samad.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ali, for this report. If I could ask Councillor Ali, what difference will this make to the lives of our colleagues and our residents? Thank you.
Right, Councillor Ali, we have 6 minutes. I don't know whether you want to attempt it or say that you'll respond in writing to some of the very interesting questions raised.
Yeah, it's going to have to be, isn't it? I'm just going to pick out some that I can answer without having to get some more information from officers. So, Councillor Rahman, you asked me about why have I brought the report on EDI to Council now. I think that's an important question. We have reported on EDI in past years, but this year we've made EDI a very particular and specific area in the Cabinet as a portfolio, which will give it more focus. It will take it through our scrutiny process and allow a full report to be delivered at full council. And the reason for this is twofold. One is obviously a decision that was made in Cabinet to do that, and another was a personal observation. It was extremely unfortunate that I went through a social media storm earlier this year for a video that I had posted many, many months ago and was used by a particular section of the media. And what I saw from the horrendous and hundreds of comments following that video was, and among the hate crime that I received, which was unprecedented. But there was a lot, amongst all of the comments telling me to go back home, there were lots and lots of comments from people who talked about the importance of upholding the rule of law, the importance of applying law, the importance of people being able to reach out, come out of the dark economy and be able to live a life which is in accordance to the law, which really gave me a lot of confidence in the work that I was doing as a solicitor. But it gave me two sides of the society in which we live in, and really re-emphasised that there is still a long way to go and a lot of work to be done. The Council has an obvious responsibility to work within the remit and framework of the Equalities Act, and also has a responsibility to lead by good example and to unite our partners to address the challenges that limit what people can do and become. Whilst we know Newcastle is a great city with great ambitions, we also know that not everyone experiences the same inclusivity and opportunities, which is why we've developed our anti-poverty and inclusive economy strategies, which EDI will run alongside. In bringing this report, I wanted to make EDI action much more visible so that everyone working for the Council or in partnership with us, or as a resident using our services, is assured that we will be treated with dignity and respect, and that we have a clear direction and focus on continuous improvement. With regards to our work on, I'm just trying to pick something out now. Councillor Walker, you asked me about the whole system approach involving residents and our current social housing tenants. Learning and customer feedback is the key outcome of the housing system work. We are committed to hearing tenants' voices and learning from them to improve services and customer experiences. We've already made improvements into the customer journey by making some of our policies easier to understand, such as our approved letting and allocation policy, which will make accessing a new social home much easier. You asked about services that we're bringing back under council control. By making efficiencies within the HRA, it will allow the council to review the housing revenue account and manage both the new build programme, make sure that our existing stock is fit for purpose. It may allow us use to apply for more grant capital funding, which could facilitate a larger new build programme in future years. And lastly, bringing housing estates up to a good standard. Unfortunately, many investors leave the last element of a scheme and prolong it and delay it as much as possible. But you know, we are reviewing, we continuously review, our planning guidance to make sure that we can do everything we can in moving the investors to an end, so that we can draw down on some of the funding that then is made available to our communities. Councillor Champion, your question about Great Park, I'll have to get back to you with some more details from officers regarding that. Councillor Sathian, I don't know how long I've got left, but Councillor Sathian, you asked...
About 90 seconds.
You asked about how we will measure progress. The Corporate EDI Board will set a clear work programme which will include outcomes, outputs and timescales to be achieved, and will report to me as a portfolio lead. And obviously I will use my annual EDI report to update on progress, achievements and future plans, but there's no reason why anyone can't email me and ask me any question about EDI for their answers. Last 30 seconds. Councillor Mirban, you asked about how we'll ensure protected characteristics and lived experiences are represented. I can talk really passionately about race and religion, but I perhaps can't talk as passionately about other protected characteristics. And I think it's extremely important that we have as many voices around the table, so that that lived experience can help us inform some of the work that we want to do in meeting the EDI challenges across the council and city. Therefore, the Corporate EDI Board will set up in such a way to ensure that this approach is embedded in our board membership. And I promise to get back to everybody else in writing, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Well done. Well done. Thinking on your feet. Thanks very much for that. Thank you. Does Council agree to accept the report? Yes, agreed. We now move on to the motions for the evening, and you may remember at the outset we agreed to a change in the order of the motions. And I'm having sort of things thrust under me at the moment. Appointments. All right. Are the appointments agreed as set out? Are the appointments agreed as set out? I'm not sure what the appointments are, but I'm not sure what they are, but we've agreed them. Okay, right. We now move on to the notice of motions. And I think, as I say, we agreed that we'd take motion 14, the Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month motion, to be moved by Councillor Tracy Mitchell and seconded by Councillor Taylor.
Lord Mayor.
Yes.
A motion without moving a motion without notice. It was raised last night at the Whips meeting. I thought it would be on the at the start of the agenda, but to move the living wage motion to the second in the motions that we'll be hearing tonight. It's a time-sensitive motion.
Somebody second that request? Second the request? Okay, right, okay.
It's without debate.
Right, in that case, I will be seeking guidance. Do we take a vote on it? Yes. Do I get the impression that it's not agreed? It's not agreed across council. In that case, we will. In that case, we need to go to a vote. Sort out the voting. If people can't go on the go vote, we'll do it the usual way, which is a raised hand. Right, so the suggestion or the motion or the request is that the motion on the living wage be brought forward to second item after the Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month motion. All those in favour? Don't worry, Councillor Lambert, I'll be asking for the non-techie people to stick their hands up shortly. So can I ask for anybody who hasn't been able to go vote to raise their hand? And we'll go around the council chamber. And if you just say your name and how you're voting for or against. Did you get that one? Did you get that one? Can we speak up, please? Speak up, as they would say in school. Going round. Anybody else on this side who's not go voted? Right. Yes, Councillor Key. Now there's a surprise, Councillor Keating. On this side, hands up, anybody who's not got a vote, go vote. Yeah, Councillor Chisholm. Was your hand raised or a bit? And yours is how are you voting? 4. Okay. Yes. How could I forget? How could I forget Councillor Lambert and Councillor McCarthy? Sorry. When you've entered the technological age, then there's hope for all of us, isn't there? Right. Okay. So the vote is yes, 32, 17 no. So I assume that means that we bring the motion forward. Is that right? Yeah, we bring the motion forward. So we're going to deal with the Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month motion first, and then the motion about that we've just mentioned there about the living wage will be the second motion that we are debating. So, Councillor Mitchell, if you'd like to speak on your motion.
Dear Deputy Lord Mayor, I am bringing this motion because I have been personally touched by pancreatic cancer in the last 12 months. What shocks me is the statistics. More than half the people will die within 3 months of diagnosis. The survival rate has hardly changed in the last 5 decades, with pancreatic cancer at 7%, while prostate and breast cancer are at 86% and 85%. According to Pancreatic Cancer UK, 7 out of 10 people will receive no treatment because the cancer will be too advanced or they will be too ill to undergo any form of treatment. Just 1 of the 10 people will be able to have an operation to cure the cancer, leaving 2 of the 10 to have treatment to extend their life. The reason for this is simple. Pancreatic cancer develops silently, with symptoms that will not get many people through the front door of the GP. And if they do, they can be mistaken for other far more minor conditions. Symptoms such as itchy skin, persistent stomach ache, weight loss can easily be overlooked and not seen to be serious to even seek medical advice. We need a real push to see improvements in early diagnosis to save lives. Part of that must be more research, and as my motion requests, a public information campaign as part of Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month each year to help inform residents about these symptoms and to hopefully encourage residents to seek a more timely medical intervention. Before I hand over to Jason, who will speak on a more personal experience with this terrible disease, I would like to thank the Chamber for the support already shown to us and for bringing this motion forward to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Councillor Taylor, you're formally seconding the motion. Are you speaking now, or are you going to reserve your right to speak? Speaking now?
Yes.
Okay.
Colleagues, it is quite distressing to speak on this subject tonight, but I was pleased to be asked to second this motion. Pancreatic cancer is a horrible disease, which in recent years has claimed the lives of 2 of our colleagues and friends. In 2019, Alderman Mike Cookson died from pancreatic cancer. He was a previous Lord Mayor and executive member of the council, and father to our current colleague, named after his father. I saw Mike in hospital shortly before his death. His cancer had been found by chance, but it was still too late for him to have any active treatment. He was very stoical about the situation, but very sad that he wouldn't be able to see his grandchildren grow up. Only 2 years later, I visited Councillor Anita Lower in the RVI. She had gone into hospital to investigate a problem with her medication, so you can imagine how I felt when she told me that a scan had shown a lesion in her pancreas and lesions in her liver. I very much hoped that she would be able to have treatment and complete her year as Deputy Lord Mayor and Sheriff, but it was not to be. Anita developed sepsis and jaundice and died peacefully at home just a few weeks after her diagnosis, and I know that all our thoughts were with her husband Phil and her 2 beloved children, Andrew and Ellie. To find out that another of our colleagues has developed this awful disease is devastating, and our hearts go out to Jason and his family. He tells me that he's had treatment and it's going well, and long may that continue. As an oncologist, I spent my working life treating cancer and saw some amazing advances in diagnosis and treatment. For example, new and less toxic drugs for advanced breast cancer, which allow patients to continue to have a good quality of life, often for several years. A vaccine now routinely given to teenagers, which almost completely prevents infection with the virus that causes the majority of cervical cancers. And immunotherapy, which is effective in many previously hard-to-treat cancers. Unfortunately, there are 5 cancers which continue to defy efforts to improve survival, of which pancreatic cancer has the lowest survival, with only 7% of patients surviving 5 years. Very little has changed in the prognosis for pancreatic cancer since I first qualified as a doctor. The symptoms are usually vague, diagnosis is delayed, and many people are diagnosed too late for active treatment. There are improvements in treatment with radiotherapy and chemotherapy, offering some benefit, but much more research is needed, and awareness needs to be raised with the public, with government and with the medical profession to try to improve early diagnosis and active treatment. I do hope this motion will receive unanimous support.
Thank you very much, Councillor Taylor. I have 2 speakers, Councillor Jason Smith and Councillor Ali. So can I call on Councillor Smith to speak first?
Deputy Lord Mayor, as Councillor Taylor has said, earlier this year, just 3 days before my 50th birthday, I was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. It's a birthday present no one wants. Until then, I didn't know much about pancreatic cancer, but I did know for most people it is a death sentence, and that it could claim the lives of John Hurt, Alan Rickman, Patrick Swayze, and Luciano Pavarotti, amongst others. Not many people speak about having pancreatic cancer because, quite frankly, half of them don't live long enough and aren't well enough to tell the people closest to them, never mind making a public announcement. Before becoming ill, I had none of the symptoms associated with pancreatic cancer. Looking back, I did have a few strange symptoms that perhaps I should have questioned more. My descent from being fit and healthy to unwell happened in a single afternoon. I bought new trainers at lunchtime, and by tea time, I couldn't go out for that pastime we all enjoy, delivering pre-election newsletters to the ward. After 10 days of feeling unwell, I found myself in A&E. 2 CT scans, and a day later, I was informed that I had suspected pancreatic cancer. A biopsy showed that the cancer was aggressive. It was in my liver and stomach lining, as well as the pancreas. And I would have 4 to 6 months to live unless I had palliative chemotherapy. I can't describe what a gut punch that news was, almost literally. Deputy Lord Mayor, I thought I had another decade at work, so my first thoughts were not of the cancer, but of the financial implications for my family. I suspect that is what most people in my position would be focused on. I have been receiving palliative chemotherapy 3 weeks out of every 4 since the King's coronation. I now have to take 5 or 6 tablets with every meal and 3 with snacks. I have to work out how many tablets I need, depending on the fat content of the food, which I struggle with. Who really knows what fat content is in a prawn or a banana or whatever? And unfortunately, I really do know within a short space of time if I've misjudged the number of tablets I need to take. I have extremely low energy levels at times. This is caused by the pancreatic cancer and the side effects of chemotherapy. To have the energy to come to this meeting, I had to have a few hours sleep during the daytime. I have to take strong painkillers to be able to sleep properly at night because of pain when I lie down. People with pancreatic cancer are susceptible to blood clots, and that's what happened to me. So I have to have a daily injection of blood thinners. I have to be nice to my wife because I don't like needles. She's sitting in the public gallery, and so I have to be nice to her to make sure she doesn't do me any harm. I cannot walk as far as I could even back in May, and I will now be using a mobility scooter to do walkabouts in my ward. I'm thinking of trademarking them as scooterbouts. It might surprise colleagues to hear, however, that I consider myself lucky. Some people with pancreatic cancer have blockages in their stomach that prevent them from eating, or they develop diabetes, so have to juggle sugar levels with taking tablets to digest food. But that is not the biggest reason for feeling lucky. Living with pancreatic cancer is a challenge, but dying from it as suddenly as half the people diagnosed is nothing short of tragic. I am in the 20% that can receive some kind of treatment to extend their life. Of course, I would be luckier if I was in the 10% who might have a cure, but I have been blessed with time to be able to sort out financial issues, spend quality time with family, give my wife and children time to get used to the idea that I won't be around for much longer, if that is ever possible. I cannot imagine how it is for families of people with pancreatic cancer who lose their relative within a few weeks of diagnosis, which sadly happens in so many cases. Most important of all, I have been given time to find ways to insert myself into the important occasions in my family's lives that I now won't be there for. Deputy Lord Mayor, I had always expected that if I was ever diagnosed with cancer, I would have a chance to fight it. With stage 4 pancreatic cancer, there is no chance of survival because there is no cure. But that does not mean I'm not fighting for every day I can spend with my family and, of course, annoy colleagues in this chamber by raising issues on behalf of Leamington Ward residents. Yesterday might have been my last Halloween. My lifespan is now in months, but I have personal goals and objectives for the next 30 months at least. But I have to accept that each big event that happens in the months ahead could be my last. A number of councillors were aware that I was unwell during the election campaign, including you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and others probably thought I was a Weight Watchers superhero by the weight that I lost. But only a few knew why I refused to share the secret of my terrible diet. I am grateful for the support I have had from colleagues across the chamber who were aware of my condition. We may sometimes disagree on council business and politics, but there are many things that unite us all, including simple human kindness. I'm conscious of time, Lord Mayor, but if I may just say a few extra points. I want to take this opportunity to pay tribute to Newcastle City Council's Welfare Rights Service. They were extremely supportive in helping me to understand some of the basic entitlements for someone in my position and my family when I'm no longer able to support them. I have worked all my life, never had a sick note, so been fortunate to have had very little involvement with DWP. So being referred to the welfare rights team by Macmillan was really helpful to me, and I'm sure to other people in my position. I should also pay tribute to the oncology team at the Freeman Hospital, especially the staff on Ward 36 who deliver chemotherapy and other treatments to so many people each week, because without their support, I would no longer be here. Deputy Lord Mayor, I recall a powerful speech from Councillor Habib Rahman before I was councillor. It was moving to all who heard it. He shared personal experience so councillors and others could understand the issue being debated. What he did then inspired me to speak out now about my own position. I hope that by talking about my condition and hopefully passing this motion, we can make people sit up and take notice. I hope we can get people to seek medical treatment sooner for strange symptoms, seek help for more accepted pancreatic symptoms, or push their GP to consider pancreatic cancer when they might be looking at a problem in the bowels. The statistics for 1 year survival rate in the UK is not great at all. The North East is even worse. Let's do all we can to improve survival rates here in Newcastle. Passing this motion will send a clear message that we want more people to have the extra time I have been blessed with, or give more people the hope of a cure when they are diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Colleagues, I don't quite know what to say. I've been on the council now for a long time, as colleagues will know, over 20 years. And from time to time, I hear speeches that really move me, just occasionally. And that was one of those. I just felt incredibly moved by it. To talk so honestly about your experience, Jason, is just humbling in so many ways. I think it goes without saying that all our best wishes go with you. Sometimes politics fades into insignificance, and all the best wishes of everybody who goes with you for the weeks ahead, for the time that you'll be able to spend with family and friends and things like that, and for coming along here this evening and speaking. I think, Councillor Ali, did you want to say a few words as well?
I'm really sorry to hear what you've just shared, Councillor Smith, and I hope your family and your faith get you through this difficult time, and I cannot thank you enough for sharing, which sounds like a very difficult experience. I'm the Council's Cancer Champion, and I took on this role during the pandemic when I had the public health portfolio. I've lost three very close members of family to cancer and have a sister-in-law who's been battling cancer for now 4 years. And you've reinforced that commitment in educating people on how to try and prevent cancer. However, I know that my family members who've had cancer didn't tick any of those boxes, which usually provide the high risk levels for people who go on and get that illness. So I'm not going to read what I'd written to read, but we'll continue to try and do what we can as a council to make sure that people who can be helped through prevention, firstly, can be helped, and especially those that get cancer can be supported through the council in various services that we offer. And welfare rights is one of the examples that you've given tonight. So yeah, that's all I'll say. Thank you.
Councillor Mitchell, did you want to say a few more words? No? Okay. I think it goes without saying that we agree that motion. Very heartfelt, and sadly, not the first time one of our colleagues has gone through this experience. And just to reiterate, Jason, I've always found you an agreeable colleague. I think we've, been able to get on well together. And as I say, all our thoughts are with you, all our prayers are with you, and the best of luck for the future. Okay, Jason, thank you. We now then move on to the next motion, which is being brought forward again, the Living Wage Week, which I think is going to be moved by Councillor Frew, seconded by Councillor Kemp.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and of course my heartfelt thanks to Councillor Smith for his contribution tonight. It's terrible to hear, and my sympathies are really with you. This motion, Deputy Lord Mayor, is we have brought forward to be timely to promote an event next week. Next week is Living Wage Week. And on the 7th of November, the Living Wage City Action Group for Newcastle will be collectively launching the Living Wage City campaign for Newcastle. On behalf of the Action Group, I want to invite all councillors here in the chamber and everybody else to join us here next Tuesday in this chamber. Next week, we will be celebrating those who are already accredited, and we'll be welcoming newly accredited organisations in the city. One tidbit that I can share up front is that we will be welcoming a new employer, bringing a pay rise to 2,000 employees as part of their accreditation. 2,000 people working in Newcastle will see their pay increased because the value of their work is being recognised. In Newcastle, we currently have 169 accredited employers. I know it's more than is written in the motion, it's increasing by the day. This covers over 31,000 employees. This ranges from large employers like the Council, the Mental Health Trust, Newcastle University and Newcastle Building Society, to small businesses and charities in the city like Citizens Advice Bureau, Meatstack and many others. With a growing set of partners committed to this cause, we will soon launch an action plan to increase the number of people benefiting from a real living wage in Newcastle. Ultimately, we aim to set the standard for employment in this city. We aim to eradicate low pay by making real living wage the default. To be clear, low pay is a choice. It was with pride and a bit of trepidation last November that I announced we were pushing to become an accredited living wage council. We achieved this quickly, joint first in the region, and we are delivering on our commitment. We provide a supplement to the pay of our own employees and require contractors to pay real living wage as a minimum. The Foundation recently announced that their new rate outside of London is now £12 per hour. We will be implementing this as soon as possible, alongside the pay award, which has only reached national agreement today. This policy recognises the hard work that our employees contribute to our city as key workers, work that they have done throughout austerity, throughout COVID-19, and throughout the ongoing cost of living crisis. It also significantly reduces the gender pay gap, which in Newcastle, we are nationally outstanding in our work on this. Workers who are paid enough to meet their family needs are less stressed, healthier, happier, and more productive. I urge every employer to take this to heart. I believe that it is key for this council to play a leading part in this campaign to shape employment in Newcastle. This does not come cheaply, and the administration has been working extremely hard to ensure that this is sustainable. The financial challenges that local government is facing are enormous, so it should be recognised that it has taken some bravery to commit to this policy for the sake of our city. This is a Labour policy making a real change to people's lives. I had some comments about the opposition, but after our previous motion, I'll leave them. Unlike the statutory minimum, the real living wage is tied to the real costs of living in the UK. This is a key plank in our response to the cost of living crisis and to address poverty in Newcastle.
30 seconds, Councillor Frew.
The scale of poverty in working households show that problems in this country are not about fecklessness. They are about a national economy in which workers have been losing out. It is a sign of a regional economy that has been neglected by national government since 2010. For workers to grow and thrive, employers need to invest in their people. If people's work isn't valued in the first place, employers won't make this investment. Council, please support this campaign.
Thank you very much, Councillor Frew. Exactly on time. Councillor Kemp, I don't know whether you're going to speak now or reserve your right to speak.
I'll speak now.
Okay, then, Councillor Kemp. Just to say, I have two speakers on this motion, Councillor Kilgour and Councillor Ferguson.
Firstly, Councillor Smith, as you know, we've exchanged a number of messages. Anything that the Council can do to support you in a time, obviously, please just ask. Council, I'm delighted to second this motion. It's one of the very early actions of this administration we committed to set out about our values and our ambitions for the city. Immediately on assuming the leadership of the City Council, this administration acted immediately. We introduced 3 key strategic priorities, all entirely focused on bringing direct and meaningful benefit to our residents, with an attention to the need to support those most in need. Our new inclusive economic strategy and our anti-poverty strategy are important tools to enable the residents of our city to achieve their potential, to become what they would like to, and to live their best lives possible. For years, we've seen rising statistics of child poverty, and we acted with urgency to address this. Importantly, for both these strategies, our approach has been a city approach, not simply the City Council, because we know we cannot do these things in isolation. And so I'm delighted for both of these new strategies. For the city, we've received support from all of our anchor and foundational institutions, and different aspects of delivery will be owned by different partners, and this should be the same with the real living wage. The other immediate decision we took was to become a real living wage accredited employer. We knew it would be a challenge, but we also knew it was the right thing to do. And I pay particular credit to my colleague, Councillor Frew, and officers in the organisation, as well as to colleagues at Sunderland Council who have provided support and advice throughout. Our progress has been rapid, becoming the joint first council in the North East to achieve this. And it is so important, because we always say our staff are our greatest asset, and we need to act to show this. This is a clear demonstration of our commitment to our workforce. As Councillor Frew has said, over 30,000 workers have benefited across the city to date, and we are ambitious to do much, much more. People undertaking vital services across the city, and it's absolutely right they receive a pay that enables them to afford essential living costs and more. We all know the impacts of low pay. The impacts on life experience and life expectancies is significant. It's clear to me that the City Council has a leadership role and a responsibility in setting the standards for the city and for setting the standards for good work in the city. We should value and celebrate that all the work colleagues across the city, the work that they do and those who deliver commissioned services for the city, services we all rely on. So it is important that we publicly support and celebrate the Real Living Wage Foundation's Living Wage Week. Through the works we are undertaking and through the partnership approach we are fostering in the city, we are committed to making Newcastle a real living wage city. And as part of this commitment, I welcome the plans for its annual report to be produced on progress to this end each year. I'm delighted and proud to second this motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kemp. Thank you. I now have two speakers, Councillor Ferguson to be followed by Councillor Cook. Sorry, yes. Is that agreed? Agreed? No? Do we need to go to a vote? I'm seeing a few shaking heads over here, so do we need to go to a vote on this? Set up a vote on suspending standing orders. Right, the motion or the suggestion is that we suspend standing orders. Can we have a vote on that? Those in favour, those against? Anybody raise their hand who hasn't been able to use the Go vote? Just give your name and how you're voting. Speak up, speak up. Can't hear. Anyone else on this side? I'll be coming across here soon. Anything else? Anybody else over here hasn't been able to go vote? Right, we'll move across to this side then, starting at the back there. Alistair. Councillor Chisholm's a no. Councillor Ali, is it? Yes. No. Anybody else? Councillor Lambert, have you managed? All right. There's hope for us all. There's hope for us all. So we've got everybody. So I've got 33. I've got 33 against and 16 for here. I don't know. Do we add to that, Brenda? Or that's right. Okay. So what's the vote? Are they the votes on all the votes on here? Okay. So it's obviously that the noes or the nays have it, so we will not be suspending standing orders. Okay, so we'll go back to this motion. Councillor Ferguson to be followed by Councillor Kilgour.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. At this meeting last year, we received a similar motion marking Living Wage Week, on which I spoke. I'm pleased that we're marking Living Wage Week once again. Achieving a living wage is vital work. Many of my comments from last year remain valid. Given that we have two motions on the agenda that have been held over twice already, welcome progress in the city has already been noted, and the text of this motion otherwise speaks for itself. I therefore refer you to last year's comments.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Kilgour.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. And can I thank Jason for sharing his personal journey with us and wish him, or send him, all of our good wishes. Thank you also to Councillor Frew and Councillor Kemp for bringing this important and timely motion to Council. I'll keep this brief as I know we're short of time, and also I'm sure you're aware there's another event happening currently. The real living wage is particularly important to the care sector in the city. We know that around 9,000 people, predominantly women, work in social care in Newcastle. Not all of them are on minimum wage, of course, but for a great many, our commitment to becoming a real living wage council makes a very real and tangible difference to their household income each week. And as we know, nationally, recruitment and retention of care workers is of significant concern, with care workers leaving the sector for better paid work elsewhere. And we also need to recognise that work in the care sector isn't easy. It's emotionally and physically demanding. The effects of the COVID pandemic are still being felt, and we're about to go into another winter with all of the pressures that that brings. I've long argued that a healthy and inclusive economy is one that values well-being and caring and recognises the contribution of traditionally female roles in the health and care sector. Well, we've proven we do just that by putting our money where our mouth is and paying them and other low-paid workers a real living wage. I don't pretend that this is an easy commitment to make, Deputy Lord Mayor. Our budgets have been cut to the bone, and we expect the public sector, including councils, will see even more damaging and draconian cuts announced in the statement, making councils and ordinary people pay for the Tories' disastrous crashing of the economy. But in the middle of a cost of living crisis, when we're seeing frightening levels of poverty in our country, ensuring that people are paid a living wage is fundamentally the right thing to do. And this isn't being done in isolation. This is an important part of our wider vision for the city, as my colleagues have said, a vision for a fairer, truly inclusive local economy. We're joined by other employers in Newcastle who've recognised the impact that a real living wage makes, not only to the thousands of local people they collectively employ, but also the contributions that these employees, in turn, make to the local economy themselves. I'm proud that despite these challenging financial circumstances, we've been bold enough to make this commitment, Lord Mayor, and I'm proud to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon-Gower. Councillor Frew, did you want to say a few closing words?
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I hope Councillor Ferguson's comments were not meant to come across as dismissive as they did. I hope he recognises the difference between the Council's commitment and the enormous task of bringing the real living wage to the entire city and the level of partnership work that comes with that. On next Tuesday, it's not just the Council, not just myself taking the stage and saying what we want to see across the city. It is multiple other partners who are invested into the same vision. So I'll simply ask, will I see you next Tuesday, Colin? And fundamentally, this year it has been increased to £12 per hour. It is a 10% pay increase for people across this city. I think that is worth a motion in and of itself. I think that is worth us shouting about, and the Council guaranteeing that 10% pay rise to thousands of people working in the region, I think is worth us talking about tonight. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Frew. Is the motion carried? Agreed. Okay. Thanks very much indeed. I'm just reminded by my timekeepers here that we've now passed the bewitching hour of 8:30, which means that the guillotine has fallen. So I'll go through the remaining motions to see whether we want to vote on them this evening or carry them over yet again to a future meeting. So the first one is warding arrangements in Newcastle. Councillor Donnelly, to be seconded by Councillor Smith. Sorry? Defer it. Okay. Has it been deferred once already? I can't remember. Okay, so we're deferring that motion. The next one is very cleverly worded. Dentistry is in decay. Councillor Christine Morrissey, to be seconded by Councillor Taylor. Are we? You'll defer that as well. Okay. Pancreatic cancer we dealt with. A motion on reduced refugee move-on period. Councillor Ali, to be seconded by Councillor Cairns. Take it this evening. Do we need to vote on this, or are we agreed? Agreed? Is it agreed? Have I got agreement? Nodding heads. Okay, the motion's agreed. It's seconded by Councillor Cairns, yes. Okay. Pavement parking, always a very contentious issue. I don't have a seconder. I've got a seconder. I've got it moved by Councillor Kane, but no seconder. Oh, Councillor Gallagher. Okay. Councillor Kane, what would we do with this? Sorry? Take it to a vote. I assume it's not agreed across the chamber. There's an amendment. Sorry. Sorry. Okay, so who's moving the amendment? Sorry? Councillor Williams, I've got a seconder. Yeah, okay. So shall we vote on the amendment? Those in favour? Okay, let's have a vote then, and the hands go up again. Right, okay. So it looks to me as if the amendment is carried. So the amendment, the motion becomes as amended. So we're now voting on the motion as amended. So can we have, are we agreed on the motion as amended? Agreed, okay. Agreed as motion is amended then, Brenda. And we're moving on to the carbon footprint from Councillor Huddart. And again, I've got, I don't know who's seconding that. Who's seconding the... Councillor Lovett, okay. So are we proceeding with that this evening, Councillor Huddart, or are we defer it? Okay. I think that's it. Is that it, Brenda? All right. Okay. So can I thank everybody for the contributions this evening to what's actually been a very emotional evening, I think, all round, in many respects, a very emotional evening. But a very worthwhile meeting. So thanks to everybody for your contribution, and safe journey home, and I'll see you at the next meeting.